Welcome to Parish and Community. This is Steve Gibbons, who is the new director of Bridges Foundation. So, how are you doing, Steve?
Fine. Thank you, Angela. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Tell me how you got connected with Bridges and what the retreat has been for you in your own experience.
Yeah. I was thinking about this today, knowing we are going to talk, and I think I would like to go back even a little further for a minute just to say thank you, really, to College Church. When I was a young man, and that's now more years ago than I would like to think about. So 40 some years ago, I was a young man kind of in search of something. Um, and I worked nearby. I worked in the 2800 block of Locust, um, and College Church was there with a noon mass every day. And as I was thinking about becoming Catholic, because I wasn't at that point, I started going to mass there, and I became intrigued. I think I became intrigued by the mass itself and about what it might mean to be Catholic to a great extent because of those masses. And so, and I'll have to say, I was a musician too, and those early days, the music of the St. Louis Jesuits was a really essential part of my coming to faith in a mature way. And so every time I walk into that church, and I don't go there often, but I do from time to time, it just feels like home. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you, first of all. Um, but the Bridges retreat, it's the experience of the spiritual exercises of Saint Ignatius in everyday life, and this is a 9-month program that we lead people through. And I became, to answer your question, I became involved with it originally about 2015 when I was talking to my spiritual director, and I said, you know what's missing in my life right now, maybe more than anything else, is a real sense of encounter and relationship with Jesus, with that person. And he said, I think I got the program for you. So my wife and I actually both went through it together at the same time back in 2015. It just proved to be so kind of life-changing to have that experience of walking in a prayerful way with Jesus over that long period of time. And so I've stayed involved ever since, and became the executive director just this past January.
And this, how has that been coming into that role this past year for you?
Well, as most people would say, doing anything new for the first time during a year like 2020, although I started in 2021, but so I started as executive director in the middle of our COVID year, of transitioning to doing everything that we do with about, we had about 22 people this year who went through the exercises, all virtually, on several different nights in several different ways. Um, but it's such a great community of people. First of all, the Bridges community. We've been here 30 plus years now in St. Louis doing this work. And many of the people who started that effort and nurtured it are still here. And so I feel very supported and very much like I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, doing this work. So um, I never feel I'm a one-man shop in some ways, but in some ways I know that's nowhere near the truth because there's so many people who make this thing happen. So, but we're looking forward to the fall starting again and being back in person with people. That's our plan right now, anyway.
How does this role compare or contrast with other kinds of work that you've done?
So I spent all my career really in higher education. So I was started out as a writer and editor of alumni magazines and public relations and press releases. First at the University of Missouri, St. Louis, and later at Washington University, where I spent the bulk of my career. And kind of transformed from being a writer, editor to being an administrator. So I eventually became an associate vice chancellor, and I was chief of staff to the chancellor of the university. So, but that role is, it's really about being in service, not only to the chancellor, as his chief of staff, but really to the entire university. And so I think I always saw my role as being in service. And, what does it take to get something done? And so I'm very good at making lists and getting things done. I'm a planner and an organizer by nature. And I think I've brought all those attributes into this role. And I think that experience has served me well. And I'm really happy because I retired from the university a couple of years now. Took a couple of years to figure out what my retirement years would look like. I was already involved with Bridges, and I work as a spiritual director and I give retreats. So this seemed like a natural thing to add to my mix of what I'm doing. And it made use of those administrative skills that I had developed over the years. Yeah.
How, what might people expect? What would you say that people might expect from the experience of participating in the retreat in daily life?
I think for me, in my experience, one of the great joys, I think, of the spiritual exercises is I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't know what it was going to be like until I was in it. And, some people, they sometimes will ask, well, what should I read before I start doing the exercises, or should I read and study them first? And we're pretty quick to say, no, don't do that too much, because I think surprise is a really important aspect of the exercises, that kind of daily waking up and saying, what's it going to be today? What am I going to find in my prayer time today that I didn't know before? And so I think what people find is a little bit of surprise, that they're seeing things, they're reading things that maybe they've read 1,000 times, but finding something new in it. Or they're praying in a slightly different way and discovering God in a way that they didn't know God before. So I hope that people come to the exercises and through the exercises with that kind of sense of wonder and awareness and what's it going to be today. Mm-hmm. So, but I hope that answers your question.
Sure.
But in a practical sense, what should they expect? I think the biggest thing is they need to make this kind of commitment to praying every day. It doesn't happen without that. It's not, we have weekly meetings or we have monthly meetings, depending on where you do this. And sure, there are the exercises themselves and the prayers. What happens and you have a one-on-one meeting with a prayer companion every week, but what happens daily in that personal prayer time is really the essence of the exercises. And so, and if they wonder how are we going to find the time to give an hour a day, my wife and I asked that same question, and up until the day before we started, how are we going to fit this into our lives? And you know what? You just say yes, and you just say we're going to do this, and you commit to doing it, and you show up, and you accept it for what it is, whether it's an hour of intensity or you fall asleep, because both can happen, and both are valid, and both serve you somehow. So I would say the important thing is to make that commitment to yourself and to God, and then show up every day for your prayer. Show up every week to meet with your prayer companion, and see where these wonderful exercises created by St. Ignatius take you.
What are some of your hopes for Bridges coming into this new season? What ways that you imagine it might respond to the needs of retreatants in the years ahead?
Yeah, we're actually in the middle of a kind of a planning process right now for what our future might look like, as we do every 5 years or so. And one of the things that we're talking about a lot these days is how do we meet the needs of a growing Hispanic community in St. Louis. And we're starting to have some really good conversations with people who can help us think about that, but we think that's a real it's a sign of hope for the church. It's a sign of hope for Bridges. How do we move in that direction? Because it's not only, asking people who are Hispanic to take the retreat. They have to have people who they can speak to in their own language. They need to be able to speak from their heart, not translate everything in English and then tell it to another person.
Right.
So we need to train prayer companions who are Spanish speakers. So that may take a few years, but that's a commitment. And I think we're real excited about making and doing. So we're definitely moving in that direction. Bridges, generally speaking, and I say generally because you're on the screen with me here now, but generally we're an older bunch, the people who have gone through it and who are the prayer companions. But you're doing the retreat, or you just finished the retreat this year, and we would love to see more younger people, whether they're in their 20s or their 30s or their 40s. We'd love to see more younger people making the retreat, becoming a part of our community, becoming prayer companions. So we see, but it's hard too. We know that it's hard for younger people to find that time. But we see those as two real areas of growth that we would like to nurture.
And how can people find out more?
So we, like every good organization, have a website, of course. We are at bridgesfoundation.org. There's a lot of information on there about the retreat and our other programs, and there are videos, and there's just videos about Ignatian spirituality. So there are resources there for people who just want to learn more too. Our retreat is starting in September, and it goes through May, and we plan on having a site at College Church again, as we have in the past. And we're going to have 2 information sessions coming up in July at College Church, where people can come meet some of us, hear from us about a little bit more about what the exercises are all about. So we're going to be at College Church on Sunday, July 18th after the 10:30 Mass, and then a week later on the 25th after the 8 a.m. Mass. So we'll have coffee, and we'll have some snacks or some post-Mass food if we're allowed to do that by then. I guess we will be. We're hoping. So those information sessions are coming up. We would encourage people to stop by and meet us and talk to us. But they can always contact me also anytime. My name and my phone number and my email address is all over the website. So check that out, and please feel free to reach out. Yeah.
Dave, thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Angela. Thanks.